My name is Liana Mercer, 25 years old. Up until a few months ago, my life felt simple in that steady, almost boring way you don't appreciate until everything collapses. I taught second grade at an elementary school in Minneapolis, and I lived with my parents in the same suburban house where I grew up, the same quiet street, the same cracked driveway, even the same bedroom with the faded purple walls I painted at 14 when I thought lavender would magically turn me into someone confident and artistic. For a while, moving back home after college felt practical. I paid $600 a month in rent, bought my own groceries, did my own laundry, and helped around the house in ways that made me feel like a decent daughter. Cleaning, organizing, helping my mom prep for her biannual garage sales. The plan was clean and straightforward. Stay a couple of years, save money, then move out. Nothing complicated, nothing emotionally fraught. At least that's what I told myself. But to understand why everything spiraled the way it did, why my entire world rearranged itself in a single dinner, you need to know about my sister Jenna. She's 32, 7 years older, and somehow the gravitational center of my parents' universe. Even when she made catastrophic mistakes, even when she spun in and out of chaos, they orbited her like she was a star that only needed more attention to shine. Jenna dropped out of college twice. Once because she wasn't inspired, and the second time because the professors didn't understand her creativity. My parents paid her full tuition both times, thousands of dollars disappearing into thin air the moment Jenna lost interest. Meanwhile, I spent 2 years working at Subway to save enough for school. I didn't enroll until I was 20 because every dollar mattered. I took out loans for the rest. My parents didn't offer to help. They didn't even pretend to consider it. Jenna never held a job longer than 6 months. Her explanations were always dramatic. A boss who hated her, coworkers who were mindless zombies, or work that drained her soul. Instead of holding her accountable, my parents swooped in every time, paying her rent, fixing her car, covering parking tickets, handing her cash whenever she declared the world unfair again. I never brought up the imbalance. What would be the point? They had chosen who mattered more before I was even old enough to understand what favoritism was. So I just lived my quiet life. I came home at 3 p.m., graded papers, planned lessons, and made slow, steady progress toward financial independence. It wasn't exciting, but it felt safe, predictable. Then one Tuesday night, the axis of my family tilted without warning. Mom had made spaghetti. We were sitting around the table like we always did, me twirling noodles, Dad complaining about traffic, Mom fussing with napkins, when Jenna walked in with a smile that didn't match her usual moodiness. She grabbed a plate, plopped down, and announced, "I have news." She didn't wait for permission. She never did. "I'm pregnant." Silence hit the room like a dropped glass. My fork froze in midair. Jenna had been dating some guy for barely 2 months, and I hadn't seen her keep a stable job in years. I braced myself for my parents' concern, maybe even panic. Instead, my mother's entire face lit up like Christmas morning. "Oh my God, a baby! That's wonderful!" She rushed to Jenna, hugging her. My dad stood and wrapped Jenna in his arms, congratulating her as if she'd just won an award. I sat there blinking, confused, waiting for someone to acknowledge reality. Eventually, I asked, "What about the father?" Jenna shrugged casually. "He bailed when I told him. Not in the picture." Still no reaction from my parents. Not a hint of worry that their chronically unemployed daughter was about to raise a baby alone. Instead, Mom clasped Jenna's hand and said, "We'll help with everything. You're not alone." Dad immediately launched into logistics. She'd need a place to stay, space for the baby, and the basement could be renovated. Proper apartment, kitchenette, new paint. His voice picking up enthusiasm with every word. Mom chimed in about colors, layouts, and turning the basement into a dream nursery suite. And just like that, they were planning her entire life for her, like the baby had transformed Jenna into someone who deserved even more from everyone around her. Over the next few weeks, they threw themselves into the renovation with the feverish energy of people who loved a project more than practicality. Contractors came and went. Drywall dust coated the stairs. My parents dipped into their 401k savings like it was a checking account. New plumbing, new flooring, fresh paint. It didn't matter if it cost thousands. They barely blinked. I tried to stay out of the way. Whatever mess Jenna created wasn't mine to solve. The basement was her domain, and I figured at least she'd have her own space, far removed from mine. It wouldn't affect me. Not really. But as the noise, the spending, and the constant discussion of Jenna's new chapter grew louder, something in my gut whispered the truth. This wasn't just their project. They were building a solution, and I already felt the shape of the role they intended for me. I just didn't know yet how impossible they would make it to say no. At first, the shift was subtle, little comments that sounded harmless if you weren't the one absorbing them. Mom would pause in the hallway, glance toward the half-finished basement, then say gently, "You should spend more time with your sister, Liana. She's going through a hard emotional transition. Pregnancy isn't easy, you know." I'd blink at her, still holding a bag of graded spelling tests. "Mom, I work all day, and I have planning and grading at night." "She's lonely," Mom insisted, looking directly at me in that way she had when she meant more than what she was saying. "She doesn't have anyone else to rely on." The message was clear. She should rely on you. Then Dad joined in, his approach less emotional, more strategic. He'd drop comments into unrelated conversations like he wanted them to sound casual when they were anything but. "You're lucky, Liana," he'd say while flipping channels. "You get off work at 3 every day. That's a luxury. Most people don't have your kind of free time." Free time. Right. As if lesson planning, grading, answering parent emails, attending faculty meetings, and prepping materials didn't exist. As if teaching meant I magically stopped being a teacher the minute I walked out of the building. But they weren't just hinting. They were building a case, a narrative, a justification. And I didn't realize it until it was too late to pretend I misunderstood. The basement renovation consumed nearly every conversation in the house. My parents spoke about it like they were designing a palace for royalty, not helping a 32-year-old woman who'd never held a job longer than 6 months. Jenna floated in and out of rooms with Target bags full of baby clothes, rubbing her belly dramatically and sighing whenever someone asked how she was feeling. She'd glance at me with this half smirk, half smile, like she already knew something I didn't. 2 months into the pregnancy, the tension snapped. We were eating pizza at the dining table, something easy, because Dad had spent the whole day supervising contractors, and Mom had spent the whole day listing baby furniture on her Pinterest board. Mom cleared her throat, her serious expression face settling over her features like a mask. "We need to have a family discussion," she said. I put my slice down. The words family discussion were never good, never neutral. "Jen is going to need help with the baby," Mom continued, eyes landing on me like a spotlight. "A lot of help. And since you already live here, and you're so good with children, and you get home at 3 every day, it just makes sense." Something cold slid down my spine. "Makes sense for what?" I asked, though dread was already tightening in my chest. Dad answered without looking up from his Excel spreadsheet. Yes, he'd brought one to dinner. "For you to be the babysitter," he said, tapping a column of numbers. "You're already here. You have experience with kids. It's the logical choice." "I have a full-time job," I said slowly, as if they needed help understanding. "I can't babysit a newborn on top of teaching." "You get home at 3, Mom repeated, as if she hadn't heard a word I said. "Most people would love that schedule. You have plenty of time." "I have grading, lesson planning, emails, conferences. My job doesn't end when I leave the building." Jenna finally looked up from her phone, her eyes glittering with amusement. "I didn't know helping your sister was such a huge problem for you, Liana. It's not about that. I just have my own life, my own responsibilities." "That's incredibly selfish," Mom snapped, her voice sharpening. "We're family. Family helps each other." And then came the blow, swift, calculated, and delivered with the coldness of someone who'd been rehearsing it. Dad closed his laptop and looked straight at me. "And let's not forget, you don't pay market rent. You pay $600. Market rent would be at least $1,500. So you owe us." I stared at him. "I pay rent. I buy all my own food. I help around the house constantly. I'm not living here for free." "If you're not ready to help your sister," Mom said with icy finality, "then we need to discuss your living arrangement. Maybe it's time we charge you what you should actually be paying." There it was, a threat, a punishment for having boundaries. I felt heat rise in my face, not from shame, but from a wild mix of anger and disbelief. They wanted me to sacrifice my career, my sanity, and my free time so Jenna could keep coasting through life uninterrupted. I stood from the table without another word. My chair scraped loudly against the hardwood, echoing through the room. I walked to my bedroom and closed the door behind me. Hard. The next few days were a slow suffocation of passive-aggressive remarks. Dad would walk past my room while I graded papers and say, "Must be nice to relax all day." Mom would mutter, "Some people don't understand what family means," loud enough for me to hear from the hallway. Jenna treated the house like her personal kingdom. She'd eat my food, leave dirty dishes everywhere, and toss casual insults at me masked as jokes. One afternoon, I walked into the kitchen and found her eating the organic strawberries I bought with my own money. "Those are mine," I said. "Mom said I could have them." I stared at her. "That's not the point." "Oh, don't be dramatic, Liana." And as if summoned, Mom walked in. "Liana," she said sharply, "apologize to your sister. This is her home too. You need to learn how to share." Share? Share my time, my schedule, my paycheck, my entire future? That night, after hours of replaying every conversation and every threat, something inside me locked into place. I needed to leave. Quietly. Completely. Before they took control of my life the way they'd taken responsibility for Jenna's. And that night, I began packing in secret. Once the decision to leave solidified in my chest, everything else unfolded with ruthless clarity. I moved like someone preparing for an evacuation. Quiet, methodical, invisible. When my parents watched TV downstairs, I packed. When Jenna left to run errands she'd later exaggerate as exhausting pregnancy tasks, I stuffed trash bags with clothes and textbooks and hid them in the trunk of my Honda Civic beneath an old blanket. Every night I snapped photos of my belongings, the TV I bought with my tutoring money, my MacBook with the serial number taped underneath, the thrifted dresser I refinished myself. Evidence, proof, insurance. I'd lived under my parents' roof long enough to know they played dirty when cornered. My secret plan was simple. Wait until moving day, slip out early, load everything into the car with Madison's help, and leave a letter explaining my departure. Clean, calm, low drama. The dream version of reality. But reality rarely cooperates. I ruined everything with one stupid mistake. After proofing my goodbye letter, a carefully written explanation of boundaries, rent manipulation, and needing to protect my well-being, I left my laptop open on my desk. For once, I didn't close the screen. For once, I trusted that privacy still existed in that house. I should have known better. When I got home from school the next afternoon, both my parents were waiting in the living room, like prosecutors. My printed letter sat in Dad's hand, folded crisply as if he'd handled it like evidence in a trial. "What is this?" Dad demanded, shaking the paper. "Are you planning to abandon us?" There was no point lying. "I found a place to live," I said calmly, or as calmly as someone can while their heartbeat climbs into their throat. "I'm moving out at the end of the month." Mom began crying, real tears this time, not the performative ones she used to weaponize. "How could you do this to us, to your sister? She needs you, Liana." "She needs a babysitter," I said. "I'm not volunteering for that job." Dad's face turned an alarming shade of red. "We gave you so much by letting you live here. We helped you get on your feet." "I pay rent," I shot back. "I buy my own groceries. I've been financially independent since I was 20. I'm not your backup plan for Jenna." The silence that followed was like a slap. Sharp, loud, echoing. For the next few days, the house curdled with resentment. My parents barely spoke to me, except to drop comments about betrayal and selfishness. Jenna behaved like a smug queen surveying land she'd inherited. She unpacked baby furniture in the hallway, lounged in the living room eating from takeout containers, and opened packages addressed to her as if ruling from on high. She never acknowledged she'd caused the situation. She didn't have to. Mom and Dad worshipped her chaos. Then came the day I had to move. I woke early. Madison parked quietly outside. We loaded bags and boxes as quickly as possible. But fate, or maybe the universe's twisted sense of timing, stepped in. Dad appeared at the top of the stairs wearing sweatpants and an expression like someone had just swung a bat at his ego. "What the hell is going on?" he shouted. I froze mid-step, a box of books in my arms. "I'm moving out," I said. "We talked about this." "No," he barked, storming down the stairs. "You're abandoning your family. After everything we've done, you're just leaving?" Mom rushed to the doorway in her bathrobe, tears already streaking her face. "What about Jenna? What about the baby?" And then Jenna emerged from the basement, rubbing her eyes dramatically, even though it was noon. Her hair was a mess, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. Don't worry, Mom, she said sweetly, stepping closer. If Liana wants to be selfish, let her go. We don't need traitors in this family anyway. Madison stiffened beside me, but she didn't let go of the box in her hands. She kept helping. She didn't say a word to my parents. That was my battle, but the fact that she stayed meant everything. The scene spilled into the driveway. My parents shouted accusations so loudly the neighbors peeked through their blinds. Heartless, Mom cried. Ungrateful, Dad spat. You're choosing strangers over your own blood. I loaded the last box into the back seat and closed the door with a sense of finality I felt in my bones. Jenna and the baby are not my responsibility, I said. I cannot set myself on fire just to keep her warm. And then I drove away without looking back. Madison's apartment felt like stepping into a different universe. Quiet, warm, welcoming. No manipulation, no guilt soaking into the walls like mildew, just peace. 3 hours later, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Mom, how could you do this? Dad, you abandoned your family. Aunt Linda, call your mother. She's crying. Cousin Kayla, wow, really selfish of you. And then Jenna's Instagram post appeared, a photo of her pregnant belly captioned, "Some people run away instead of supporting family, but my baby will know true love." There were prayer hand emojis, heart emojis, comments praising her strength. I blocked her, blocked my parents, blocked anyone who thought moral debt could be collected through shame. But the past always tries to claw its way back. 2 weeks after I moved out, I realized I'd forgotten important documents, my teaching license and W-2 forms. I needed them. So I recruited Madison and Olivia from school to come with me. Not because I was afraid physically, because I needed witnesses. Walking through the front door felt like walking into someone else's life. My room, my sanctuary, was unrecognizable. Jenna had mixed her clothes with mine, spread baby items across my desk, stuffed random belongings into drawers like marking territory. She appeared in the doorway holding a Starbucks cup. It's kind of hard to tell what's yours and what's mine now, she said with a shrug. So you probably shouldn't take anything. I pulled out my phone and opened my photo roll. This is my room before you touched it. Here's my list of belongings. Here are the serial numbers. Mom and Dad suddenly appeared. Dad pointing toward the door like a bouncer. If you take one more thing, I'll call 911. Go ahead, I said calmly, and I'll show them proof that Jenna entered my room without permission and tampered with my belongings. That's a tenant rights violation in Minnesota. The color drained from his face. With Madison and Olivia helping, I packed every last item that was mine. When Jenna claimed my MacBook was hers, I handed her the receipt with the serial number printed clearly. The only person stealing here is you, I told her. You tried to steal my time, my peace, and turn me into your unpaid nanny. Not happening. This time I didn't walk out quietly. I walked out with all of my things and all of my power. And I never went back. 6 months passed, and my life reshaped itself into something I'd almost forgotten was possible. Quiet, steady, peaceful. Not the fragile, tiptoe around everyone peace of my childhood home, but real peace. The kind that settles into your bones. The kind that makes you breathe differently. I settled into Madison's apartment like it was the life I'd been meant to live all along. We cooked dinner together a couple nights a week, watched movies on the couch, laughed about her boyfriend's weird habit of labeling his leftovers. Olivia became a regular visitor. She brought wine, stories from school, and a kind of warmth that didn't come with expectations. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone was draining the life out of me the moment I walked through the door. Work became lighter too. I still taught second grade, still stayed late some nights to help struggling students or decorate bulletin boards, but it all felt manageable, mine. My principal nominated me for a Teaching Excellence Award. I didn't win, but hearing my name announced at a staff meeting made me smile in a way I hadn't in a long time. I was even saving money, real savings, not the maybe I can afford gas and groceries this week kind. Without my parents threatening to raise my rent as punishment for not mothering their grandchild, without Jenna raiding my groceries, without constant emotional exhaustion eroding my energy, everything felt lighter, doable, hopeful. I started thinking about getting my own place in a year or two, a small condo, something with sunlight and hardwood floors, and a balcony for morning coffee. Then one of my second graders drew me a picture, me standing at the front of the classroom, smiling huge, next to the words, "Best Teacher Ever" in purple crayon. I stuck it on my fridge. You don't realize how much validation you're starved for until a 7-year-old hands you a drawing and it fills a hole your family never bothered to look at. During these 6 months, I didn't hear from Jenna directly, not once, but the grapevine is powerful. Through Aunt Linda, one of the few relatives who didn't immediately condemn me, I learned that the baby had arrived. A girl. Healthy. Beautiful, apparently. Jenna had named her Everly. I didn't feel anything when I heard it. Not joy, not sadness, not guilt. Just distance. Like hearing news about someone I used to know in high school. According to Aunt Linda, things at my parents' house were unraveling exactly the way I knew they would. Jenna hadn't found a job. She said she was too overwhelmed and emotionally drained. From what Linda heard, she spent her time on TikTok and Instagram, posting about motherhood as if she were the poster child for resilience. Meanwhile, my parents were doing everything: night feedings, diaper changes, bottle washing, rocking Everly to sleep. They were exhausted. They looked 10 years older, Aunt Linda said. The basement renovation had never been completed. They drained their retirement fund for it, only to end up stuck with a half-finished space and a daughter who treated it like a free studio apartment. They're struggling, Aunt Linda told me gently, but that's not your fault. They made their own decisions. How's Jenna? I asked. Not because I cared, but because I needed to hear the truth spoken aloud. Same as always, she said. Posting photos, letting your parents do all the work. I nodded. Expected. Predictable. Almost boring in its inevitability. Aunt Linda also told me my parents kept asking about me, at first angrily, accusing me of betrayal, then with attempts at emotional manipulation. Photos of Everly. Long messages about how every child needs an aunt. Pleas to come home and talk things through. I told them what I've always told them, Aunt Linda said. If they want a relationship with you, they need to apologize, and mean it. Have they? I asked, though I already knew. No, your father says they've done nothing wrong, that you're the one who abandoned them. There it was, the truth sitting exactly where I'd left it. My parents would never admit they were wrong. They'd never acknowledge the years of favoritism, the emotional manipulation, the rent threats, or the expectation that my life existed to support Jenna's. That night, after Linda hung up, I sat on the couch thinking about everything that had happened. The silent resentment, the buildup of demands, the moment my parents tried to control my adulthood by raising my rent, the screaming on the driveway the day I left. Some people might say I overreacted. That family helps family, that I should have just stepped up. But those people never lived my life. They never saw their sister get everything handed to her while they clawed their way through school. They never had their parents reduce their autonomy to a financial transaction, babysit, or pay more rent. I stood up for myself. I don't regret it. I don't feel guilty. Because here's the truth. I learned the hard way. Love doesn't require self-erasure. Family doesn't mean servitude. And boundaries are not betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Thai food tonight? My treat. You've had a long week. I smiled, really smiled, the kind that warms your chest instead of tightening it. This was my life now, a life I chose, a life without manipulation or guilt, a life built on respect, not obligation, a life where I finally felt free.